West Nile virus has been all over the news in the last few years, and there is a very good reason for that. Just like there is a very good reason for everything. There has been an explosion in cases in the United States ever since the virus first arrived there in New York City in 1999. Scientists now predict that a total of 7 million Americans have been infected with the virus between 1999 and 2016 as the virus traveled from coast to coast, becoming an almost constant presence in some warmer states like California in the southwest. But the West Nile virus, a flavivirus, isn't only spreading in the United States. It's taken hold in Eastern and Southern Europe as well as parts of Russia, and has even managed to spread as far as South America and Australia. I mean, the Netherlands just recorded its first ever case of West Nile virus, its first ever case. Clearly, the West Nile virus means business. It's certainly here to stay for the foreseeable future anyway. But it wasn't always like that. First identified in Uganda in 1937, outbreaks of the virus were mainly confined to Africa and Israel until the early 1990s. And then everything started changing. What happened, you ask? Well, in short, climate change happened. But if you want to learn more than just that, you'll have to stick around to find how our carbon emissions and the climate change crisis are contributing to the spread of infectious diseases like the West Nile virus, allowing them to enter territories they would have never dreamt of entering before. And at the end of the video, I'll explain, away from all the media sensationalism, how worried you really should be about the West Nile virus, so make sure you stick around for that. But before we get started, let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Tell Me Why. Dr. Tell Me Why is a health education YouTube channel where I make accessible and engaging medical scientific content. So if what you're looking for is something that's down to earth yet still very much educational, you've come to the right place. Congratulations! Now you should subscribe. Now, first things first. The West Nile virus is a flavivirus belonging to the same family as Zika, dengue, and the yellow fever viruses. But that's hardly the most important thing you should know about the West Nile virus. The most important thing you should know about the West Nile virus is that it's a vector-borne virus. But what's a vector-borne virus, I hear you ask? It's a virus that infects humans indirectly, typically through another living organism, the vector. The vector or living organism in the case of West Nile virus are the Culex mosquitoes. And well, typically what happens is the mosquitoes will bite and feed on various infected birds, becoming infected with the virus, and then in turn will go on to bite and infect other birds. If you've ever been to a mosquito-rich part of the world, you'll know that mosquitoes can't stop biting once they get started. But sometimes instead of feeding on another bird, the mosquito will go on to feed on a human being, and thus that person becomes infected with West Nile virus. So how exactly can climate change influence the spread of diseases, infectious diseases like West Nile virus? Well, in short, it's all down to temperature, rainfall, and humidity. These climatic forces, temperature, rainfall, and humidity, influence a large number of factors, like how well mosquitoes survive in a particular area, how many baby mosquitoes they go on to produce, and even how often they go on to bite and feed onto humans. Moreover, the virus is also affected by these climatic forces. Things like how often a virus replicates, making more of itself inside a bird or a mosquito, can be very temperature dependent. Scientists have concluded that the ideal temperature for transmission of the West Nile virus, that's a temperature where you get the most mosquitoes biting at the highest frequencies and viruses replicating at the fastest rate, is between 25 and 30 degrees centigrade. And that's probably why you get the largest outbreaks in Europe and the United States in the summer and early autumn months. The weather conditions during those seasons are just right and favor the transmission of the virus. However, as a result of rising temperatures as well as unpredictable weather events, we may see the transmission of the virus move earlier into the spring and end later into the autumn months. We can also expect to see larger outbreaks that correlate with unusually hot summers. Interestingly, these outbreaks never last for a single year but tend to continue for several years afterwards after that unusually hot summer, even if the weather conditions improve on subsequent years. In the past 20 years, there has been a significant increase in global temperatures along with an increase in the frequency of unpredictable weather events. That has allowed historically tropical diseases to spread across the world unchecked. Literally, look at me, I'm sunburnt and it's late September. How tragic is that? But you know what? There is a silver lining here. If temperatures continue to rise in the virus's homeland of Africa, it might actually get too hot for the virus there and the virus may be completely wiped out from these areas in the distant future. America and Europe though, not so much. Many sciencey people like to think of nature as this big punisher, an arbitrary force that's completely unpredictable and does exactly what it wants to do. And while this picture might have a tiny bit of truth in it, it completely ignores that nature is often reactionary. As in, yes, it's a powerful force, but it only really acts in response to the actions that we take. Some of these actions, like our ever-increasing carbon emissions and the severe climate change it results in, will likely influence the transmission patterns and the geographic distribution of many diseases, not just West Nile virus. We can expect to see many vector-borne diseases like malaria, for example, spread into new territories as weather conditions become favorable in those regions. This will result in an increasing global healthcare burden. Because rising temperatures, climate change, global warming, our actions and what we choose to do with our planet affects almost everything from mosquitoes to viruses and eventually, obviously, even us. So how worried should you be about West Nile virus? Well, remember when I told you that scientists estimate between 1999 and 2016, 7 million Americans were infected with the West Nile virus? That's a lot of people. The fact is, the vast majority, around 80% of people who catch the virus don't really show any symptoms. They're completely fine. Most of them would probably not even know they're infected. The other 20% go on to develop moderate symptoms, but a small number of people can develop life-threatening meningitis or encephalitis. The people most at risk of developing these conditions tend to be the elderly and those with pre-existing health conditions. But before you dismiss the West Nile virus as something you really should not worry about because you are young and you are healthy, please bear in mind that we actually have no specific treatments for West Nile virus. Treatments tend to be supportive and attempts to develop a vaccine have thus far been unsuccessful. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it informative. As always, if you like this video, then give it a like so the YouTube algorithm can like me and recommend this video to other people. If you really love this video, then you should subscribe. See you all next Saturday. Boom.